Hey, what's up? Zach here, and today I've got the all-new Way of Wade 8083, and these things pack quite a punch for the profile and the package that they are in. Really some interesting stuff to look at. Let's get right into it. And a big thanks to Way of Wade for sending me a pair of these over to check out. However, as in all my videos, opinions are all still my own, pros, cons, and everything in between. So let's get right into it. Now, starting off in the uppers, the 8083, it's basically an entire bed of this really strong textile woven braid. As you can see under the microscope, just these really just tough braids going all the way through it. Now that's on the outside layer as well as in that orange layer, at least on this colorway. So what's contacting your foot as well as what's on the outside has a lot of containment for a shoe that's basically, the foxing is basically the plastic, the TPU stabilizer on the lateral side. Now what I like about that is it does come up really high into the uppers, and you do need that when you have a drop-in that's this substantial. But you know, because that TPU comes all the way from the tip of the toes, all the way here to the back of the heel counter, and then over medially, the uppers combined, number one, with that super tough braiding, but number two, with the TPU, you're really getting a lot of reinforcement in this for a little bit more of just a minimal upper type shoe. Now the lace lines on these is reinforced. It's a pretty thin reinforcement, but the reinforcement is there. The tongue is not gusseted. That's the only thing on the uppers that I thought was just a little bit of kind of like a mismatch, whereas everything else is really kind of reinforced, really tough. The tongue has a lot of movement. However, I noticed because the lace line does go through that tongue, and because the lace line is pretty substantial and the laces are pretty substantial, that I really didn't notice any movement in that tongue. However, if you look at the breathability test on these, actually they only heated up 102.1 degrees, cooled down another 40.7 degrees, better than the 808 3 Ultras in that category. I think number one, because it was a lot of textile in the uppers, and those braids are a little bit more wide open, even though it is an exposed midsole, you were still getting a lot of blowing out, number one, of the vamp of the shoe going up into the tongue, plus the tongue isn't gusseted, it just kind of blows air out of there. Now, if you look at the upper durability test, 10-second Tire Grit sandpaper, another one of these shoes where the actual upper materials are stronger than the drag guard itself. I mean, the burr gets through the drag guard, but it doesn't even make an impression on the braiding. That braiding is really super tough. Plus, because the outsole rubber comes up really high there on the toe box, and you actually do have a little bit more reinforcement there going into the lace line. Even for outdoor dragging or sliding, I think these are okay. They might start to look a little bit used and scuffed maybe, but I think the integrity will still be there. And getting into the midsole teardown, a lot of times I ask myself, and sometimes I'll ask the members in the members of our first videos, like, why am I tearing down these shoes? They're drop-ins. However, there usually is something to see with a drop-in shoe, especially with Way of Wade, that you wouldn't see just on face value. Now, on this one, it's the breadth of the shank. Now, if you look at these just from the bottom here, I'll put them back together here. If you look at them from the bottom, you know, the shank looks, you know, decent, but it looks pretty thin. It doesn't look like it's, you know, really that substantial. However, once you tear it down, I mean, just look how big it is. It's pretty darn long, going from, you know, junction of the rear foot and midfoot all the way up here to the junction of the mid and forefoot. Plus, that boom insert in the forefoot there is also pretty substantial. Now, the rest of the drop-in is Cloud Foam Plus, which is a thermoplastic nylon foam. It is very spongy. A lot of shock absorption in this foam. If you look at the bounce height test on it, got 33 centimeters in the heel, which is that Cloud Foam Plus section. And then in the forefoot, when I put it on the boom foam, got 40 centimeters like we're used to seeing. What's interesting is because the ball bearing hits the Cloud Foam Plus first, and then the boom foam, still got a really nice bounce of it. So both of those foams combined together are really nice. However, what I like most about this drop-in, number one, the drop-ins from Way of Wade, I think, are just, they've cracked the code. They mold so well to your foot. After even just a few uses, it becomes almost like a softer custom insert after a while. And once they do break down, that's when you know, the heel slippage is none. The fit is really customized. That's what I like. But even more than the fit and feel of the drop-in, what I like most about it is it's such a substantial drop-in, but a lot of times on drop-in shoes, you don't get a lot of springboard effect. You don't get a lot of launch on them because your foot just isn't like really contacting the shank of the shoe as much. You're not getting that one-to-one, right? When your foot bends, you know, the drop-in bends and then the shoe bends. So you're not really getting that fluid movement. Whereas on the 808 this huge shank is built right into the drop-in as well as the boom foam. So everything can kind of work as one unit, right? Then the shell of the shoe is basically just there to contain your foot. And so that's why I think the launch capabilities of this shoe so much better than a lot of other drop-ins. And I think Way of Wade is just, you know, they're tinkering with these drop-in kind of inserts, what they're putting in the drop-in itself, these little kind of customizations in there. And I think that they're really starting to get good at this because that shank goes just far enough to give you a really nice launch out of them. But getting into what's definitely my favorite part of the 808-3s is its outsole tread. This thing was screeching from the second I put them on. No rubber warming whatsoever needed. These things had a grip like you wouldn't believe. And like I always say, sound doesn't always equate to good grip. However, when the grip is phenomenal and they sound like a fighter jet screaming across your head on the court, you know something's good about them. The next thing I like about them is they have that kind of real nice pedigree wave pattern that a lot of 808s have had. Those really nice steep waves going all the way through the shoe. There is a forefoot insert there, which is a little bit of a different, more dense pattern there, but the waves are, I think, what we're really doing the work there. The lateral flange is almost entirely rubber, and it is, once again, really broad, going all the way up into the toes, here into almost the midfoot, so you're getting a lot of stability on a shoe while not having to have it be so super bulky. So transition steps, side to side steps, kind of, you know, crossing your feet over almost like in like a karaoke type step is really easy on these. They get out of your way really quick when you're trying to make very quick, sharp cuts and when you're trying to kind of get your feet out of the way of each other. But what I found really interesting about this, you know, package in general was the speed ratio came at a 2.29, which is kind of, you know, average to above average for a basketball shoe of this weight. However, I think the speed ratio does not tell the whole story of these shoes because of how the drop-in is, you know, formulated, right? That boom foam right there next to that shank in the drop-in, I think just gives it a really great launch. Like I said, first step launch out of these is just really phenomenal. I think, you know, for going coast to coast on these, they're an above average speedy shoe. However, in terms of like really quick, fast movement and just trying to get from low speed to high speed, I think these are in the elite category. So like I said, I think once you break in that drop-in more, I think they almost get better and better because you're contacting the boom foam a little bit more. You're getting more intimate contact with the shank. The shoe is kind of enveloping your foot a little more after a while. So I'd say at the beginning, these are speedy. After a little bit of break-in, they become elite. And on the outsole durability test, 10-second tires grit sandpaper, I mean, not a millimeter of damage, almost. I mean, the durometer is pretty decent. I think if you have, you know, decent footwork, I think as long as you're not dragging a ton and, you know, you don't have a lot of shuffle stepping, I think these are still okay on an outdoor court. The thermoplastic nylon, pretty darn durable for a drop-in. You got a lot between yourself and the ground, the boom foam insert in the forefoot. So if you're looking for something forgiving on an outdoor court and breathable on an outdoor court for a drop-in, I think these are right up there. I think their best surface definitely is indoor hardwood for sure, but I think these are one of those shoes that definitely can run the gambit. And getting into the fit of the 808-3s, I was a little bit curious about these because the 808-3 Ultra was such a low-feeling shoe in the forefoot, really streamlined. These were much more forgiving in the forefoot. So, I mean, narrow, medium, wide foot, I think just go true to size on these. You know, low, medium, high arch can go true to size on these. Really no issues with any sort of like foot shape on them. I think for someone with snake bites on their foot, especially, you know, plantar heel pain, like, you know, bursitis, those things, ball of foot pain, I think is great. If you are going to be using a shoe that's a drop-in for more arch strain, arch pain, I think the 808-3 and the 808-3 Ultras are one of the better ones out there. Remember, you can't put an orthotic on top of a drop-in. That is basically your insert, right? You're standing on the midsole. But, you know, in terms of a shoe that's low profile, really performance driven in this type of package, this is about the best you're going to get without putting an orthotic in. And of course, you know, when you want to talk about the playability of the 808-3, you kind of have to talk about the playability also of the 808-3 Ultra. To me, the 808-3 is one of the best playing shoes out there right now. This is, if not the top performer, you know, at least in the top 5 in terms of performing shoes. I thought in terms of just pure raw performance, they played better than the 808-3 Ultra. I thought the grip was better with those really high peaked waves. I thought the cutting power was almost a little bit better because once you break them in, the whole shoe is just moving so fluidly with you. Forgiving, the launch off them was really good. Even for like, you know, hitting jump shots, the springiness of them was really good. Plus they were a little bit lighter than the 808-3 Ultra. The 808-3 Ultra to me is like a drop-in version of the Way of Wade 10 or the All City 11. And if you like that, then then go with that. I think that's a great pickup then. If you're looking for a continuation of the 808 line and the performance of the 808 line, especially the last couple I've reviewed, the 808 2 and then the 2V2 Ultra, or however you want to say it, I think this is more of that 808 pedigree type line of shoes, and the performance definitely just carries right through. I know that shank doesn't seem like much on the bottom of the drop-in. However, in terms of when I was going up to hit layups, or just kind of just bouncing up and down on the ground, you can feel it. It's doing enough there that there is a difference between this drop-in and some other drop-ins out there that just don't have it, or their systems of drop-in are just a little bit different. So I would say anything from a shifty guard all the way up to a power forward, I think can utilize the tools of this shoe. And I think if you are someone that has really like fluid footwork and just wants a shoe that you can, kind of pirouette around the court in and just make yourself feel a little bit lighter on foot, this is a definite pickup. And for sure, like I said, if not the best performing shoe out there right now, it is darn close. It's one of them. So I'm really glad that there is the Ultra and the 808-3, because like I said, I think the Ultra just fits a different category versus the 808-3. I think these are going to sell pretty well, to be honest. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Which one are you going with, the 3, the Ultra, or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to see the shoe I'm referencing in this video all over and over and over, the 808-3 Ultra Go Under the Knife, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect rubber and foam, especially thermoplastic nylon foam. See you somewhere in the Sneakerverse.